My name is Andrew Fleming. I'm an exercise physiology student studying at the University of New England, and I'm currently studying psychology in sport. I'm an avid rugby fan and player. Today we'll be discussing the link between intrinsic motivation, flow and sport, and ways to promote this experience, also what may hinder or disrupt achieving this. When I started this unit and heard things like mindfulness, intrinsic motivation and flow, my first thoughts were, what a load of rubbish. I run onto the field pumped and ready to destroy my opposition. And you think I look into my mind and feel? Yeah, right. In many sports, the culture is to warm up and psych up as much as possible before taking the field. This can often lead to over-arousal, which can have a detrimental effect on flow. After some procrastination and reading, watching some lectures, and a little bit more study, I began to look back on my sporting career and identify times where I might have indeed been in a state of flow. One example was a few years ago now, a game of rugby union playing hooker. My teammates said and still say it was the game of my career. However, I remember very little of it. I had 0 missed tackles, 5 scrum wins against the head, 100% line-out wins. I couldn't do a thing wrong. The drawback was a laterally broken nose, 10 stitches above my left eye, and a dislocated finger. I didn't feel a thing. I had achieved 80 minutes of pure focus on the task at hand, and it felt fantastic. I can now say this was absolute flow. However, we didn't win the game. When we think of taking the field and playing hard to win 3 coaches' points and a free beer at the end of the game, this is in essence playing for reward. It is externally regulated. Extrinsic motivation is where we are motivated by external factors as opposed to the internal drivers of intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation drives us to do things for tangible rewards or pressures rather than for the fun of it. Intrinsic motivation is often described as playing for the love of the game or activity, not for payment or reward. We enjoy it. We experience internal stimulation, we feel accomplished, and we may experience heightened knowledge. The best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to the limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. If we look at extrinsic motivation as dangling the carrot, our motivation is topping the leaderboard, being paid the big bucks, lifting the trophy overhead at the grand final. Now let's look at intrinsic motivation. This comes from the heart, the pump of life, what makes us tick. This gives us purpose and love. Love of the game, belonging to something, and probably the biggest one is fun and enjoyment. This is the basis of why we take up sport in the first place. Belonging to a team event, the passion of doing something that we may have watched our idols do on TV many times, and mastering the skills required to compete. When we look at flow, it's high regarding the challenge and high regarding the level of skill. To achieve this, we require the following aspects to come into line in order to achieve. We must be motivated to achieve. This is the balance between the challenge level and the skill level. We must achieve optimal arousal prior to performing, becoming aroused enough to perform and relaxed enough to harbour anxiety. We must maintain appropriate focus prior to performance, staying in the present, not allowing outside influence to shift concentration. We must be prepared, planned, and have peak optimal physical preparation. This is having done the groundwork and having the skills and knowledge to hold anxiety and worry at bay. We must be confident and have a positive mental attitude, being in the situation, having the confidence, positive thinking, and mentally being able to meet all the challenges faced. Flow relies on many aspects to come together at the same time. However, there are many preventative factors that can derail the attainment of flow in sport. Obviously, non-optimal physical preparation. This includes injury, fatigue, illness. Non-optimal environmental or situational conditions. We could have external stresses, uncontrollable influences during an event, lacking the confidence or negative mental state, having inappropriate focus, non-optimal arousal, for example, we could be too excited. Negative team play and poor performance history. When we achieve flow and are performing in the zone, there are also many factors that have the potential to disrupt. These issues can have a detrimental effect on performance once again. Non-optimal environmental and situational influences, stoppage in play, negative referee decisions or no feedback. Physical arousal, physical readiness or state, lack of physical preparation, injury during competition. Team performance, negative talk on the field is a big one. Lack of team interaction, self-doubt and self-pressure. Inappropriate focus, this is focusing on everything else rather than oneself. Quite often, a gun player who's a senior member of a team will step up to become captain of the side. It can be difficult going from a player who's intrinsically motivated, who often gets into the flow and leads by example, to now take on the duty of managing their team on the field. This can have detrimental effects as now they've lost their state of flow. Quite often, even in the professional leagues, we see progressive psych-up once we have arrived at the ground. We discussed the last time we played them in the change rooms before the warm-up. Then we hit the field with a 40-minute high-intensity activity followed by a 5-minute stretch before returning to the shed to psych-up. This could reach over-arousal. One technique that has been utilised only recently to my knowledge is a 10-minute intrinsic motivation session where a player sits, walks around and thinks about what to do with the help of coaching staff. They think about what they are about to do. We often hear the phrase, playing your natural game. When this occurs, it brings us one step closer to obtaining the level of flow as performance is intrinsically based. We don't think about what to do, it just happens. This is intrinsic mindfulness session allows the player to visualise their particular job or task in the game. For instance, flanker's first job in the game is to chase and regather the ball at kickoff, whereas the big front rower will be thinking of his first bone-jarring hit-up or scrum engage. Visualising and rehearsing your role for the game helps you to bring one step closer to achieving that flow. I guess when it comes down to performance, we all want to be in the zone 100% of the time, to be the best we can be. If we can understand what brings us to a state of flow, and maybe more so the factors that disrupt, we can work to achieving this high state of performance, and most of the time hitting that flow point more regularly. Thank you.